I did want to talk about Caden Anderson, though, the starting cornerback. I did not know that about him in high school, but that is really cool. And it does, so that's big time Texas football then that he played. So what about him? What have you guys seen? What do we like? What can we expect?
So he just made his 6th career start Saturday night against Utah, and, it wasn't his best outing. I think the numbers bear that out for sure, but, seeing it in person, something doesn't look right. He also took a gigantic hit at the end of the Northern Iowa game where he had to go to the hospital for further testing and make sure all of his insides were still where they were supposed to be. I mean, he got absolutely wrecked. So it was a big question mark heading into the week whether he would even play last week. So tough outing for Caden, but his first outing was last year against New Mexico and Devin Dampier, and every time Dampier scored, Caden Anderson answered. And it was 35-35 at halftime, and that was a Wyoming offense that was not very good. And they just kept going, and he has all the stuff. I mean, when Quinn Ewers, you might remember, he left for Ohio State early because of NIL stuff. So Caden Anderson was the starting quarterback at South Lake Carroll. I mean, this is a program that plays on ESPN. This is a program that plays in Jerry's World. This is Friday Night Lights, the whole shebang. And Caden Anderson was being sought out by the TCUs and Oklahoma States of the world until he suffered 2 torn ACLs, and Wyoming was the only school that stayed with him. And he's a dog, man. His teammates love him to death. I talk about it all the time, but during that New Mexico game, he threw a pretty bad pick 6 in the red zone, and behind the play, he was getting a 15-yard penalty because he was all over a defensive end in his face and headbutting him. And I want that out of my quarterback. If I'm going to get a 15-yard penalty, I'll take it, man. And he's that kind of player, and you really appreciate that. And he rallies the guys. So, a lot of question marks around here about Caden right now, fair or not. Obviously, Utah is a hard barometer. They're, that's a tough measuring stick when you're facing a team like that. But the offensive coordinator and Caden Anderson right now under a little bit of scrutiny. They've only scored, 16 points against FBS programs through the first two outings, and obviously put 31 on Northern Iowa, but they only scored on 5 of 15 offensive possessions, which is not getting it done either. But, there's a lot of moving pieces. Although 80% of Wyoming's offensive production is back this year, which is, according to ESPN, the 4th most in the United States of America. There's still guys who are playing new positions. There's still guys who didn't play a lot. There's still transfers who are getting – so, Caden needs to be better. And what I like about this kid is he's a sophomore. He stood behind the podium on Saturday night and said, this one hurts a lot, and it's on me. I take the blame for all of this. I missed so many throws. That was a winnable game, and we will be better. We have a really good team, a really good offense, and we will be better. And, you got to like that. You got to like that from a kid who's taken the blame, even though it most certainly isn't all on him. And is a guy who's like, I'm going to be better. He holds himself accountable in front of the press and behind closed doors. So really like the kid. He needs some help from some receivers, some linemen. The running game's been really good so far. Maybe rely on that a little more. And I like the kid. I just, it's been a little clunky early on, but maybe some feeling out. And I would argue too, Manny, most teams, we're not going to really know their identity. It's going to take a little bit. I mean, there's so many moving pieces now. You don't even, half the Wyoming fans don't even know who the hell half the roster is. Yeah. So it's, you don't know who the roster is. They're still feeling each other out as well. And I think you've seen that at Colorado more so than any other school in the country as far as moving pieces. So that could be part of Colorado's deal too.
Yep. And and that's what I try to the transfer portal is so much fun during the offseason to cover it. Heck, that's a lot of where Colorado content comes in, right? The recruiting, transfer portal, all these different things. But what we have caught with Colorado, first year Prime took over, second year, even last year, right? Everyone sees the end of the end of the season record, and everybody sees Travis Hunter wins the Heisman, Shedeur putting up these godly numbers, completion percentage. They looked rough to start the season last year. North Dakota State almost came in to Boulder, to Folsom, and beat them. It was man, Shedeur threw that one up at the end of the game, and they caught it right for that first down. And at that point, they'd had to punt. And you give the ball back to Cam Miller in that situation, that is who knows what happens at that point. So they went through that. They went into Nebraska and got the brakes beat off of them. And it wasn't until halfway through the game up in Fort Collins last year, that Colorado figured it out and things started to click. Things started to move better on offense everywhere. It takes time. And again, I think a lot of people forget that. But what we're used to, right? And again, I shouldn't say used to, what we have seen the last 2 years was Colorado's offense was very good. And again, that is Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter there. So, I guess I've kind of, after this past weekend, going into it, I was kind of like, okay, let's see this. It's typically game 3 that they figured out. It looked even worse. So I think this is kind of where I even said to a point is they're going to be fighting for a bowl game this year. This is just the realistic expectation, regardless of what we want to say. The offensive line is bigger. The defensive line is bigger, but there's too many moving parts. They're not gelling right now, and they have not figured anything out again. So I think that transfer portal plays a huge role. You don't know until right in the NFL, they get a preseason, and it's there for a reason. College, it's typically the first 3 to 4 weeks, right, as well. So, and again, even to an extent to the NFL, 3 games, 4 games as well into the season is when teams start to gel as well. So it is tough right now, especially with the transfer portal.
Yep, no doubt about it.
Yep. And then last one I want to talk is Chris Durr Jr. So he leads the team in receiving. It looks like he's putting up some numbers, almost averaging 100 per game. What do we need to know about him?
He's a freak, man. He's a little dude in stature, but, man, he can flat fly. And they've done a really good job getting the ball in his hands. He's their best playmaker. And they've really gotten the ball in his hands early on. John Michael Gillenborg, who's expected to play this week, is the Cowboys' other biggest offensive threat at tight end. He's a guy that, if he can stay healthy, definitely should hear his name called early in the spring in the NFL draft. He suffered a thigh bruise against Utah and didn't come back in that game, but they're expecting him to play. But those two, it's kind of pick your poison. Who do you want to cover? And for Akron, they really kind of took J-Mike out of the game. But Chris Durr, you leave him one-on-one against one of your safeties, forget it. And that goes for Utah. That goes for Colorado. That isn't just Akron. This guy can flat get it. He's from the Chicago area, true freshman last year. He played last year. He scored a touchdown in the opener against Arizona State, but he didn't play enough, in my opinion. He should have been in early and often. But he's Caden Anderson's number one target. He's the guy he looks to first. He looks uncoverable. Just a little pain in the ass slot guy that just is a menace. You hate facing guys like that. And if they want to focus on him, that's when J-Mike, you would think, would go to work. So they need to figure some things out. They need to get this thing going and really exploit people with those guys. And Jalen Sargent, another downfield threat, he has not got going yet at all, and he's a guy they really need to get. Chris Durr is a guy who in the offseason we all thought, oh, boy, here's a guy who, the Deion Sanders of the world would love this guy. And he's one of the guys that was on that 10 that Jay Sawville talked about that he kept. And a lot of that credit goes to, obviously, Durr himself, but Javon Bonite, Wyoming's new wide receiver coach, who is a Wyoming Hall of Famer himself, one of the greatest wide receivers in Wyoming history, who went to Denver Manual High School. He called him every day in the offseason. How you doing? How's life? How's the parents? This staff has a real good feel for stuff like that. It's not lip service. It's the head coach calling you every day, texting you every day. It's not some recruiting coordinator. So I think that's really done them well. And it goes back to the players coach thing. And he came back and he wanted to play for Javon Bonite and he wanted to play for Wyoming. And to be honest with you, man, Wyoming can hang just fine with its peers in the NIL world. Where Wyoming is really good, though, is the home atmosphere as far as group of 5, group of 6 schools go. Wyoming's pretty unmatched in a lot of ways. War Memorial Stadium is the place to be. It's packed out. It's the best home field advantage in the Mountain West. I know people are going to go, oh, this guy's nuts. What about Boise State? Yeah, Boise State's been a hell of a lot harder to play in because they've had really good players for a long time. But I will tell you, that stadium doesn't intimidate me. The only intimidating part is it looks like you're walking into a penitentiary. Other than that, the stands are a mile and a half away from the field and all that, in the not in the end zone, but behind the benches. So it just doesn't have that on top of you feel that War Memorial Stadium has. Not to mention the 7220. which plays a factor depending on who you're playing, of course. So the one thing, though, that Wyoming cannot emulate is, I mean, we talk about it all the time, right? Would Josh Allen have entered the transfer portal? I think Wyoming would have thrown as much money as it took to keep Josh Allen, whatever it took, if that was the case back then. But the one thing Wyoming can't do for you is Texas Tech playing in a Texas A&M game at Kyle Field on Thanksgiving with a chance to go to the SEC championship and a possible national championship. And that's what Wyoming cannot offer. And that's the only thing, in my opinion, that they cannot offer. And a lot of these guys see that. John Michael Gillenborg was offered 6 figures to leave this offseason. And he was offered by an impressive list of schools. And he said, you know what? He saw the forest through the trees. And he said, I got a really good thing going here. The fans care about us. They love it. They pack it out every night. Wyoming's paying me, handsome, good, good. Let's go win some games. We're not leaving this at 3-9. We're not going to leave it this way. Let's go back for our final year. Let's run it back one more time. And, we got it made pretty good here. And Josh Allen, if anything, can prove to you that you can get where you want to go from Laramie, Wyoming.
No, absolutely. And I think, man, that staff is impressive the way it sounds, because again, I would have thought, right, like your Chris Durrs of the world, a bunch of these guys that you brought up, to me, I'm kind of like, well, why are they still there? And you did a great job of explaining that. And if this staff, maybe that's something to think about because, again, there's not many many teams that can replicate, right? Like playing at Death Valley at LSU, playing at Kyle Field, right? All of these huge schools, right? Like you cannot replicate that. The Big House, right? The Coliseum. Colorado can't replicate that either, right? There is that piece too, though, right? This is and maybe they'll get there, but again, it is not Kyle Field, it is not the Coliseum, and I think is Colorado fans. I think is there's this saying. What I like to say is Colorado has been, like I said, they were almost extinct at this point. It felt like it was. It felt like after that 1-11 season. It's like, okay, so when is this funeral going to be held, right? That's what it felt like. Yeah. And Prime came in, and now it is electric in Boulder. It is loud in Boulder. Home sellouts constantly, going above the 100% capacity. I always like to say, welcome to college football. Welcome to college football, Colorado. Like, I've been to the Coliseum before. That is like big time, right? Out in Los Angeles for USC. That is the LA Memorial Coliseum, right? That can't be replicated. And I think what Colorado is starting to find is it's going to take money in this NIL era. And they are trying to stay ahead of it. They are trying to create their own, I think it's, the 54-30 club. Tons of different ways to fundraise for the NIL. But again, there's parts of that the money can't buy, right? Yep. And that is just super impressive, though, what is going on at Wyoming. Because, a couple times, I'm just kind of, even looking at Chris Durr, because I did watch him a little bit. I'm not an expert on him, but I was like, sophomore, why did he return, right? And that is just me thinking, right? Like the where we are in college football right now, right? So that's huge, though. And again, I hope he does stay there. I hope all those young men stay there because if they have something, like what I always like to say is they're cooking with grease right now. It sounds like, and some specials being built there in Laramie.